Hey guys, how are we? Well, very hot here. Just over my camera, just in the background there. I don't know if you can see that, but absolutely ferocious storm coming in. So I'm going to try and shoot this video quickly. The level of precipitation that occurs within a short 10-minute period here in Thailand during the monsoon rain is just incredible. Within 10 minutes you can basically have the streets and the infrastructure absolutely flooded. So I'm going to try and get this done and get home before that hits. So there's so much happening at the moment. I did catch up with Nick yesterday as well, and he said, Dave, you should possibly even change the name of your channel to Interesting Times, because it's usually the way that I start my videos, because it's just, it's like the old Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times. So, so anyway, it just is what it is. We do live in interesting times, and it really is stranger than fiction. Okay, where do I start? So, China. We've got bank runs in China, so the people are trying to get their money out of the bank. The banks are saying, no, you can't have your money because we don't have any liquidity. So what they've done is they've actually done what I warned was going to happen 4 or 5 months ago, and that was the forced bail-in scheme, which was brought about and signed off on at the G20 summit in 2014. Where basically if you put a deposit into a bank, it means that what the bank can do is actually transfer you from one side of the ledger to the other. So rather than you being a liability for the bank, they can take you from being a liability to being a credit. They do this by making you a shareholder. So they take your deposit, your bank deposit, and then they put that into the bank as a shareholder. That brings liquidity into the bank, and it allows them to do some very interesting things with it. And I think that's pretty much what they've done. So in response to that, what the Chinese people have done is refuse to pay mortgages. So then they've got further liquidity woes, right? So now they've got the Chinese government rolling tanks onto the street, and at this stage, from what we understand, it's to protect the banks. But this is, it seems to be a rerun of Tiananmen Square, but it's different. Tiananmen Square was about, the people having rights and a free democratic way of life. This is actually about people's livelihoods and their deposits, their savings. I mean, let me explain this to you. In the East, there's 16 free trade zones in China. They're quite wealthy. In the West, where Henan province is, these people are virtually on subsistence living. They have been for years. So you imagine working in a Foxconn factory for 12 hours or 16 hours a day, for 20, 30 years. You've saved as much as you can, and then some bank says, oh, we're going to give you bank shares instead of a deposit, and we're putting a trading halt on so you can't get your money out, and their crappy bank's probably not worth anything anyway. So big problems in China. This is not going to end, and I think China is in real problems. They have systemic problems, and I know another a friend of mine and subscriber to the channel, Aiden, the other day said, hey, what do you think's happening in China? What's happening? Is it, X, Y, and Z, or is it something else? And I said, this is systemic problems. These are system problems. They have major problems with the finance and economic system. So, this spells major problems for China and could potentially spell major problems for the rest of the world. Now, the reason why I say that is because when you have internal fracturing in a society, often what will happen is a government or the power players at, that run the government are going to try and have an external threat to solidify or to bring together the populace under one banner. So they want to bring people together with an external threat. So just keep an eye on things. Listen for rhetoric around America and incursions into China's sovereign territory in the South China Sea, issues with Taiwan. Just keep a note for that, because that is going to be possibly the CCP's saving grace. I think that's going to be their trump card. So keep a note of that. So we're going to go from China to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a complete basket case. It's done. So they've got a new president or prime minister, but it is an absolute shambles, and they're really not going anywhere fast. What's basically come out is the level of Chinese debt that Sri Lanka has been exposed to. And now, guess what? China is actually wanting those ports, those airports, because they've defaulted on their debt. They want all of those bits of infrastructure. So keep an eye on that. So what else is happening? From there, you basically go to the Netherlands, and they've got massive riots because the farmers are being disenfranchised because of woke, liberal, green, European, ECP and World Economic Forum policy, where they want to prevent the farmers from fertilising their farms, and a few other bits and pieces. So that's a complete basket case. And I can tell you what, once you disenfranchise the common man from the very little things that he has, and he loses everything, there is absolutely nothing that will hold him back with absolute disdain for any sort of government. And I did see a police officer shoot at someone in a tractor the other day. So my personal opinion is, I think the Netherlands will be the first among many European powers to actually overthrow the government. I think that's what's coming. They will not stop, because they've got nothing left if they do stop. So anyway, so from the Netherlands, then you go to Panama. Panama has massive riots on the street. Now this one is particularly interesting. Now the official inflation rate in Panama is 4.5%, which is quite low in regards to a lot of economies that we're looking at the moment. You know, like for example, they're saying the inflation rate in Australia is 3.5%, which I very much doubt. I got an email from IKEA the other day, and they said, oh, come and enjoy lunch at IKEA, and you know, you can buy a chicken burger for $12. You know, probably 10 years ago, that chicken burger would have been about $3.50, $4. So that just gives you an idea of how much inflation is running away in Australia. When you consider that they're selling lettuces in Australia for $11 a lettuce, and you know, everything is absolutely climbing out of control. When you contrast that with Panama, you know, if Panama went through those levels of inflation, there would be absolute hell to pay. So what's actually going on in Panama? What's going on there? Well, something very simple is going on, and it's called militant unionism. So, yeah. So what's actually happening there? I said in previous videos that the thing that you want to watch out for is militant unionization. So what's happening in Panama is the unions are taking control and stirring a lot of trouble. They want wage growth because of inflation. So they're paying more for petrol and more for food. The government's come out and said, look, we'll drop 25 or 24% off the cost of petrol, and we'll put a price freeze on all the essential items that families need. Still not good enough. So they have blocked off freeways that give access to the Panama Canal, which is one of the most strategic canals in the world. A lot of the world's trade goes through the Panama Canal, because you can imagine a lot of those ships either have to go all the way to the south near Argentina, all the way around the bottom of South America, or they're going to have to go up through the Arctic, which is not going to happen. So Panama Canal is actually very, very important. So they blocked that off. This is only going to increase problems with inflation with the rest of the world, because that's going to increase supply chain shortages to a further extent. So we've got big problems with Panama. That is not going to stop. Last time this happened, the Americans went in there and basically put a stop to things very quickly. I don't think that's going to happen under Biden, because Biden, well, let's face it, Biden doesn't do anything. He can't even ride a push bike. So major issues there for the rest of the world. So keep an eye on that, because someone, if it gets bad enough, someone will go in there and correct what's happening in Panama. And we will probably get a feel for who is in control of this new world order with whoever goes in there to take control of the Panama Canal. So, where does this leave us all? Well, personally, I think this leaves us with increased levels of inflation in the next couple of months. You have systemic problems in China, and you know, as I said to someone the other day, I just realized that we are exposed to a Chinese finance company. And I hadn't actually put it together, because often what happens is these companies draw up multiple subsidiaries, and then that gives it the appearance of not being the same entity, but you are going to be exposed to it. So if you are in, for example, and I'm not going to be specific here, but you can do your own research. If you're in a cryptocurrency exchange that has a Chinese ownership, perhaps you would think about pulling your money out of that exchange, because I think there is a major contagion issue coming here. And that contagion could spread right throughout the world finance and economic system. So just be very mindful of that, because you could lose everything. And I can tell you the Chinese genuinely do not care about whether or not you've lost your life savings. That is clear. So, Panama, major problem for the world economy. China, major problem for the world economy and the world financial system. And the other thing, actually, while I remember, we've seen a lot of these world leaders either being stood down or being killed. So you think about Boris Johnson. He was basically ousted as the Prime Minister of England. Then you saw Abe being shot and killed. He was not the Prime Minister at the time, but I mean, he's very influential. Then you saw the Sri Lankan government being overthrown. And I think this is what you're going to see a lot more of in the coming weeks and months, is a lot of governments being a changing of the guard. A lot of people a lot of these people either being killed or being overthrown in government. So keep an eye out for that as well, because I think there's going to be a lot of government instability. So you've got financial and economic instability, you've got geopolitical instability, and where does this leave us all? I think we're heading in for very, very difficult times. So brace yourself, make sure you've got enough food, and you have all of your debts and all that sort of stuff sorted out, and limit your debt if you can, and make sure that you have an escape plan or an ability to hunker down in location for an extended period of time, because, and I don't think it matters where you are in the world. As I said to someone the other day, what normally happens is this basically comes from the extremities and then works its way into the major top global economies. So you got a developing economy, it's going to fall first, and then wealthier economies start falling, and then you've got major economies start to fall, whether economically or with political upheaval. So just keep an eye on that. All right guys, going to leave that there. If you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you get all the notifications with our videos when we upload them, and we'll go from there.